Hello, and welcome back. What an excellent time to be alive. Never before, at least in my lifetime, has it been looking so incredibly promising the NFA and the GCA are finally going to fall. Anyway, in the last video we had talked about the Heller decision and exactly how he had justified upholding the NFA, because when you look at the Miller decision, they said military equipment in common usage is protected by the Second Amendment. Now, in the Miller decision, they were specifically talking about a sawed-off shotgun, and they had reasoned that a sawed-off shotgun didn't have a military purpose, so therefore it is not protected by the Second Amendment, and any firearm in common usage in military, as in military equipment, is protected because it would be necessary to have an effective militia. Well, in the Heller decision, you can't talk about a Second Amendment case without bringing up the NFA, because don't forget, not only has the NFA never been found unconstitutional by the Supreme Court, it has also never been found constitutional by the Supreme Court. The NFA itself and the GCA have never once been ruled on. They always find a way to put it in the back burner, and anytime a case is moving up through the court system about to challenge the NFA or GCA, it gets mooted out because the feds just drop the charges because they know should one of these cases make it to the Supreme Court, at least as of right now, there is like a very, very good chance that the NFA will be found unconstitutional. Anyway, Justice Scalia in the Heller decision, Scalia, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Justice Scalia in the Heller decision was like, hey, obviously I have to address, is the NFA constitutional or unconstitutional? Now, he didn't directly address it, like he didn't find the NFA constitutional, but he did talk about it. Now, his justification for not striking down the NFA right then and there, he pretty much gave two reasons. The first one we had discussed, that was the fact that he said there are two different militias. We've showed that that's not the case. Whenever they talk about the militia, they talk about the militia, not a militia, not a second militia, not Congress's militia. It's just the militia, implying that there is only one militia. And he was totally talking out of his ass at that point. The second reason, he said that the NFA, he's not going to strike it down right then and there, is because there is history that certain weapons are considered rare and unusually dangerous and were banned. What he's specifically talking about here is dangerous and unusual weapons, which is an affray. Now, an affray is not a law against the weapon. Let's go over the affray so you understand exactly what an affray is. You can find plenty of references about this, especially in the book, Blackstone and Common Law. It's a book. They discuss specifically about an affray and exactly what it is. Anyways, in the Heller decision, he had used the example of an affray, saying that there is a such thing, again, as an unusually dangerous weapon that was commonly banned back then. So, therefore, there's text, tradition, and history of the NFA, so the NFA stands. But the affray has nothing to do with the weapon. So what an affray is basically disturbing the peace, but it's an extension on disturbing the peace. It's disturbing the peace with a weapon. So for it to be counted, now this is my interpretation. Understand when it comes to like firearms laws, I've only been studying it for about 2 months. So I don't even think I'm classified as an amateur scholar in this particular thing. But because of the situation I am studying the crap out of it, because the longer this drags out, the better I want to be educated in this. So should my case make it up to the Supreme Court, I'm just a weapon to come in there and chop down the NFA. Anyway, so an affray, one, it has to include a weapon. Whether that's a 2x4, a horse, a pistol, a sword, it doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, somebody was charged with an affray for riding their horse into a courtroom. So unless you want to go ahead and add horses to the NFA, that right there kind of already destroys it. The weapon is irrelevant because what we're talking about here is brandishing a weapon and how you brandish it that the actual law is against. Not any in particular weapon, but how it's brandished and used in public. So first off, there's got to be a weapon involved. Second off, you got to have the context of the weapon. So they don't want people just getting charged with an affray back then because somebody didn't like the way something looked. Basically what we're seeing right now with red flag laws. So anyway, you got to have context for it. So for example, we'll pretend this is a 2x4. If I'm on a construction site and I have this 2x4, because there's context and a reason for me to have this 2x4, I can't have a passerby see it and then be like, he's got a weapon, I want him charged with an affray. If you have, say, an M60 machine gun and you're bringing it into a courtroom, that would normally be an affray. However, if you're bringing it into the courtroom for evidence in a particular court case, that would not be an affray. If you're taking an M60 machine gun to the shooting range and somebody says it and I want him charged with an affray, well, that wouldn't be an affray because you have a reason to have it. You are going to the shooting range to test out your new M60. Now, say you were to take that same M60, 2x4, horse, sword, knife, and you go down a public street. Now, remember, it's got to be in public, because if you do this in private, then it's a totally different crime. But say you go down there, and you're in the street, and you cause, which would be the next part, knowingly cause terror to the general public, and that's why it's got to be done in the public, with violence or implied violence. So I take this M60, I'm standing on the sidewalk, and I'm like, hey, everyone, I'm not going to do it right now, but I'm going to shoot all of you. That would be an affray. Even though there wasn't actual violence committed, because there was the implied violence, it happened in public with a weapon, that would be an affray. So I understand Justice Scalia wanted you to look at an affray as rare and unusually dangerous, but that's not what it is. It's not. Even the references he quoted, it's like he only read the first sentence. If he would have read down even just a little bit, it would have destroyed his own argument. Go to his references and then actually read the entire thing. We're talking about an affray here, and it's not rare and unusually dangerous. It's dangerous and unusual weapon. So it's got to be unusual for the circumstance. It's got to actually be a weapon, so therefore it's got to be dangerous. It's got to be done in the public, and there must be some sort of either violence or threat of violence to make that count. If it's done in private, not an affray. If it's not done with a weapon, not an affray. Like, say you use a snowball and you're like, hey, you're in public, you threaten someone like, I'm going to throw this snowball at you, because it's not dangerous, because you can throw that snowball at a person. Well, you know, the courts might argue the opposite, but the point is, we're going to pretend that they don't. Or a water balloon, I'm going to throw this water balloon at you. Yeah, you would get it for disturbing the peace, but it wouldn't be an affray, because a weapon's not involved. So, the only thing that Justice Scalia proved is that it is possible to commit a crime with a weapon. Now, just because it is possible to commit a crime with a weapon does not mean the weapon is not protected. Because remember, Scalia was kind of going off on this side thing. He winded up passing, which is unfortunate. It's never good when someone dies. But anyways, he was kind of going over this side thing very recently, like before he passed, talking about how rights have limits. I'm pretty sure he was a ringer, and he was going to uphold the NFA, like let a case actually come into the Supreme Court and say the NFA is constitutional, and I'm pretty sure he was also going to make it so hate speech would be a crime. Glad that didn't happen, but it still is very sad that he passed. So, his 2 points in the Heller decision of why he didn't strike down the NFA: 1, there's 2 militias, which is utter bullshit, and 2, that an affray proof that in history there were certain weapons that were not allowed to be carried because they were rare and unusually dangerous, which is also bullshit. An affray is about brandishing. It is a public disturbance offense that is done with a weapon. It is not a restriction on a weapon or any sort of weapon restriction. It is a restriction on what you actually do with that particular weapon. Again, context matters. Right here, this is not an affray. Everybody knows that this is a pointer, and I'm using it for this particular board. Now, say I took this on the street, and I started threatening people with it, even if I don't actually cause violence, then yes, that would be an affray. This is an unusual and dangerous weapon. It is unusual because I don't have a context for having this on the street or telling people I'm going to do violence with it. And it is a weapon because it can cause harm. I did it in public, therefore, an affray. So unless this wants to be added to the NFA, his second point is also moot. So what are we looking at here? Every time and I mean that every single time an NFA case has went in front of the Supreme Court, they make it go away. Because they can't have a case be challenged, because everyone knows, it is not a secret, the NFA, the GCA, the Hughes Amendment, all are insanely unconstitutional. They were protected for quite a while. That was some people's legacy. Those people are dying off, and they're gone, and the NFA will in fact fall. Do not lose faith. You are the good guys in this fight, remember that. Regardless what people think, or try to get you to think, you are the good guy. You are the one that is standing up for what is right, American values, and the Constitution. They're the ones that are trying to tear down the Constitution and put some other form of government in place. You are the good guy. Anyway, if you like Top Sports Channel, got my Patreon right there. I also have affiliate links in the description down below. Just by clicking on those particular links. Even if you don't purchase what that particular link is for, just clicking on it and doing the Amazon shopping you were already going to do anyway, I'll kickback for it because you came there off my channel. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.